Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try, you somehow sabotage your own success? It's not bad luck. It's not weakness. Carl Jung believed there's a hidden force inside you, buried so deep you don't even know it's there, that quietly pulls you toward failure. Not because you can't succeed, but because part of you is terrified of what success would demand from you. And until you face that truth, you'll keep building your own prison, brick by brick. You tell yourself you're ready. You've worked hard, planned everything, imagined how success will feel. You've made progress, real, tangible progress. And then, without warning, you trip yourself. A missed deadline, a sudden loss of motivation, an accidental choice that undoes weeks of effort. You stand there, wondering what went wrong, blaming your focus, your discipline, maybe even your luck. But the truth is far more unsettling. What just happened was not laziness. It was not a lack of willpower. It was a hidden force inside you that quietly, persistently works against you. This is self-sabotage, and it's one of the most powerful psychological forces you will ever face. The paradox is cruel. You consciously want to succeed, but unconsciously, a part of you fears what success will demand from you. On the surface, you set goals, make plans, and push forward. Beneath the surface, your own mind is pulling the emergency brake. You might not even notice the moment it happens. Maybe you've seen this in your own life, getting a promotion within reach and suddenly finding reasons to delay important tasks, meeting someone who could change your life and then forgetting to follow up, finally making progress with your health only to binge for days because you deserved a break. To anyone else, these are just bad decisions. To you, they feel like mysterious slips in judgment. But they are not random. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind will fight to maintain the familiar, even when the familiar is harmful. It does this because change, even positive change, is experienced as a threat to the identity you've lived with until now. If you've spent years identifying as someone who struggles, someone who is trying, but never quite there, then actually arriving at success is not just new. It's foreign. And what is foreign often feels unsafe. This is why people cling to familiar pain over unfamiliar possibilities. You might think you're chasing the future you want, but deep down, you're gripping the past you know. Your unconscious has been programmed to keep you there, in the territory it understands, because stepping beyond it means facing uncertainty. And uncertainty, to the primitive parts of the mind, is dangerous. So it keeps you safe by nudging you off course just enough to return you to the world you recognize. But the question is, why would your own mind betray you? You've been told your whole life that failure is the enemy, that it's something to fear, avoid, and overcome at all costs. But here's the quiet truth that most people never admit. Failure can feel comfortable. It can feel safe. Not because it's enjoyable, but because it's familiar. Success is a stranger, and strangers make the unconscious uneasy. When you succeed, you enter uncharted territory. You face new expectations, new responsibilities, and the risk of losing what you've gained. That's a lot of uncertainty, and the human mind is built to prefer the known over the unknown. This is why some people remain in jobs that drain them, relationships that hurt them, or habits that hold them back. As painful as these situations are, they are predictable. You know how they work. There are no surprises, no sudden shifts, no unexplored risks. Carl Jung understood this pull toward the familiar. He believed that our unconscious works tirelessly to preserve what it knows, even if what it knows is slowly destroying us. This isn't because the unconscious is malicious. It's because it equates the familiar with survival. For generations, our ancestors lived in a world where unfamiliar territory meant danger. A strange path could hide predators, hostile tribes, or poisonous plants. Staying in the known territory kept them alive. Your brain carries that same survival code today, but instead of avoiding physical danger, it avoids emotional and psychological risk. The result? You might long for change, but your inner compass quietly steers you back to the old map. And it does this with subtle precision. You procrastinate on the project that could move you forward. You convince yourself you're not ready yet. You focus on small, safe tasks instead of the one big leap that would transform everything. Each of these choices feels harmless in the moment, but together, they pull you back into the safety of what you know. This is why people often confuse comfort with peace. Comfort is not always a sign of alignment. It's often the sign that you're standing still, avoiding the stretch that growth requires. And here lies the quiet danger. If failure becomes your comfort zone, you'll keep walking toward it, even when you believe you're running toward success. But if the familiar is so powerful, then what chance do you have of escaping it? The shadow is not a monster lurking outside of you. It lives within you, quietly shaping the choices you make. Carl Jung described it as the collection of traits, impulses, and fears you refuse to acknowledge about yourself. These are the parts you push into the dark because they don't fit the image you want to present to the world. You might think you've hidden them successfully, but the shadow does not stay silent. It speaks through your behavior, often in ways that seem like coincidence or bad luck. That job interview you forgot to prepare for. That promising connection you let fade without explanation. That sudden decision to abandon a goal just when things were starting to work. To an outside observer, these are small slips. To your unconscious, they are deliberate acts designed to protect the status quo. The shadow's hidden agenda is simple. Maintain the version of you that has always existed, even if that version is unhappy. It knows that the moment you succeed, you will be forced to step into an identity it does not yet recognize, and that feels like a threat. This is why some people keep repeating the same patterns for years. They change jobs, but find the same problems. They end relationships only to choose similar partners. They start new projects, but stall in the exact same place. On the surface, these repetitions feel accidental. Deep down, they are the shadow's way of keeping you in familiar territory. Projection is one of its favorite tools. Instead of noticing how you are undermining yourself, you blame others or external events. It's bad timing. They didn't give me a chance. Life just doesn't work out for me. These explanations feel comforting because they shift the responsibility away from you, allowing the shadow to continue its work without being challenged. But the truth is, until you confront this part of yourself, it will always find a way to pull you back. It is not enough to consciously want success. You have to bring the unconscious into that desire, and that requires looking at what you've been avoiding. Most people will never do this because it is easier to believe life is against them than to admit they are standing in their own way. But here's the reality. The shadow will not stop. It will wait for you to get close to the finish line, Then whisper just the right thought, plant just the right doubt to make you step off the track. And until you understand how it operates, you will keep falling for it. But the shadow doesn't just hide, it acts with precision. And the real question is, how exactly does it create the patterns that keep you from moving forward? Perfectionism is often praised as a sign of high standards. But when it comes to self-sabotage, it is one of the most effective traps your mind can set for you. On the surface, perfectionism looks like dedication. It convinces you that you are simply striving for the best. But underneath, it is a delay tactic. If nothing you do is ever good enough, then you never have to finish, never have to take the leap, never have to face the uncertainty of what happens when you actually put your work into the world. You can keep polishing, revising, and preparing forever, safely avoiding the risk of success or failure. This is the shadow at work, disguised as diligence. The second pattern is distraction seeking, which hides behind the mask of productivity. You fill your days with small, easy tasks so you can feel busy while avoiding the one thing that actually matters. You might clean your workspace, answer every email, or start new side projects that seem urgent but are really just detours. The shadow loves distraction because it keeps you moving but not advancing, exhausting your energy while keeping you exactly where you are. You tell yourself you're working hard, and technically you are, but you're not working on the thing that will change your life, because change is what the unconscious is trying to prevent. The third pattern is emotional triggering, and it is perhaps the most subtle of all. This is when the shadow uses unresolved emotions to derail you. It might stir up sudden irritation toward a person you're working with, or amplify small setbacks into major disappointments. You might find yourself in unnecessary arguments, or seeking comfort in habits that drain your focus. These emotional spikes feel spontaneous, but they often appear at the exact moments when you are getting close to a breakthrough. The shadow uses them to pull you out of alignment, making sure your attention shifts away from progress and back toward familiar drama. All three patterns share one thing. They allow you to avoid stepping into the new version of yourself that success requires. They keep you busy, frustrated, or emotionally tangled. But above all, they keep you safe in the territory your unconscious knows best. Once you begin to recognize them, you can see how often they appear right before you could take a leap forward. They're not flaws in your personality. They're strategies your own mind uses to maintain control. The question is, now that you can see them clearly, will you have the courage to act differently when they appear? Because the patterns themselves are only the surface. Beneath them lies something far more dangerous: the deep fear of becoming someone new. Success is rarely just about achieving a goal. It is about becoming someone who can live in that new reality. And that is exactly why so many people resist it. The fear of becoming someone new is not always obvious. You might think you are ready for change, but deep down, your mind is protecting the identity you have carried for years. Carl Jung explained that growth feels like a kind of death to the ego, because the self you know has to dissolve for a new one to take its place. Even if that old self was unhappy, it was familiar, and familiarity feels safe. Imagine living your whole life in a small room. The door to a bigger world is right in front of you, but stepping through it means leaving behind everything you understand. The furniture, the walls, even the air is different out there. Your old self knows exactly how to survive in the small room. The new world, it has no map for that. So your unconscious convinces you to stay. It whispers doubts like, what if you can't handle it? What if you lose everything you gain? What if people see you differently and walk away? These questions don't come from malice. They come from an instinct to protect you from what it perceives as danger. The irony is that this protection is exactly what keeps you trapped. You start to notice this fear most at moments of opportunity. Just before a major presentation, you suddenly feel unprepared. Right when a healthy relationship starts to deepen, you find reasons to pull away. When a long-term dream is finally within reach, you question whether you even want it anymore. These moments aren't accidents. They're defense mechanisms triggered by the thought of stepping into a self you have not yet fully claimed. But here's the truth. Every meaningful transformation carries this discomfort. It is the same discomfort a snake feels when shedding its skin, an unavoidable process that is both vulnerable and liberating. The question is not whether you will feel fear, but whether you will walk forward with it. Because if you don't, the shadow will make sure you keep returning to the self it already knows, and you will never discover the version of you waiting beyond that door. And that is the reason most people never complete the transformation. The shadow is not your enemy. It is a part of you that has been pushed into the dark, waiting to be acknowledged. Carl Jung believed that the shadow holds energy, creativity, and strength that can only be accessed when you stop fighting it and start integrating it. Integration does not mean indulging harmful impulses or excusing destructive habits. It means shining a light on the parts of yourself you have denied, understanding why they exist, and choosing how they will act in your life. When you stop treating the shadow as a threat, you begin to reclaim the power it has been using without your awareness. One of the first steps to turning the shadow into an ally is awareness without judgment. Most people notice a flaw or a fear and immediately condemn themselves for it. But judgment only drives the shadow deeper, making it harder to see. Instead, notice your reactions the way a scientist observes a pattern. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? Or, what am I afraid will happen if I follow through? This shifts you from being a passive participant in self-sabotage to an active investigator of your own mind. Another step is pattern spotting. Keep track of the moments when you pull away from opportunities or overcomplicate simple decisions. You may notice they often occur in similar situations, around certain people, after specific triggers, or at predictable stages of progress. These patterns are the shadow's footprints, showing you exactly where it tends to interfere. Once you see the pattern, you can disrupt it. This might mean setting clear boundaries, reducing contact with influences that feed your fear, or deliberately taking small actions that prove you can handle the discomfort of growth. The more you do this, the more you show your unconscious the change is not fatal. It is survivable. Over time, the shadow becomes less of a saboteur and more of a guardian, alerting you to vulnerabilities without steering your actions. This shift brings clarity, stability, and a deeper sense of self-control. The energy you once spent on avoiding fear can now be used to build the life you actually want. And here is where your commitment matters. If you are serious about ending self-sabotage, you cannot keep this as a private thought. Declare it. Write in the comments, I choose awareness, not for me, but for yourself. That single sentence is a line in the sand, a choice to stop being unconscious in your own life. Because awareness is not the end of the journey. Even when the shadow is on your side, you must still create a version of yourself capable of carrying the weight of success. And without that, you will find yourself pulled back into the old cycle. Becoming successful is not only about achieving goals, it is about becoming the kind of person who can sustain them without collapsing under the weight. Many people work tirelessly to reach their dreams, but when they get close, they realize they have not built the identity required to hold on to what they have gained. This is why so many lose momentum after a breakthrough or quietly sabotage themselves when the pressure grows. Carl Jung understood that lasting change requires internal reconstruction, not just external achievement. Your unconscious needs proof that the new reality is safe, and the only way to provide that proof is through consistent, deliberate action that aligns with the person you want to become. Think of it like reinforcing a bridge before heavier loads cross it. You cannot simply hope it will hold. You must prepare it. This means developing habits that reflect the identity you are aiming for before the big success arrives. If you want to be a disciplined leader, you start practicing discipline now in small, daily actions. If you want to be financially secure, you start making careful, intentional money decisions today, even with small amounts. The identity must come before the outcome. Otherwise, when the outcome arrives, your mind will panic, seeing it as something foreign and unsafe, and it will find ways to push it away. Building this identity also means letting go of roles and labels that belong to your old self. This can be uncomfortable, especially if others are attached to who you used to be. You may lose approval from people who liked you better when you played smaller, but their comfort cannot be the measure of your growth. With each aligned action, you are telling your unconscious, "This is who I am now, and I can handle this." Over time, the fear of success fades, replaced by a calm certainty that you belong in the new space you have created. And yet, even with a stronger identity, there remains one final test. The moment when the old patterns try to pull you back. Passing that test is the only way to break the cycle for good. And that final test will not come quietly. It will arrive disguised as comfort, as an old habit, or as a familiar voice telling you to slow down, to wait, to go back to the way things were. Whether you pass or fail in that moment will decide if your transformation lasts, or if you slip back into the life you fought to leave behind. If you're ready to face that challenge, you need to understand something even deeper: the possibility that you are not living your own story at all. In the next video, are you living a scripted life? Jung and existentialism will uncover how unseen forces may have been writing your life for you, and how to take the pen back. Watch it now, because the longer you wait, the more the script tightens its grip.